Field sobriety tests, though represented to determine whether or not you're impaired, actually are divided attention tests. How many things can you do at one time? The reason they use those is because when you're driving, your attention is divided among multiple things. For example, pushing a gas pedal or a brake pedal, steering, watching the road, paying attention to the other cars, and paying attention to whatever's going on inside your car, whether we like to admit it or not. So the way you can challenge a field sobriety test, which has been successful so many times in court, is to have somebody demonstrate it. They're not easy, even for somebody who's not had anything to drink. These are also tests that are significantly easier the more fit you are. So I've had cases where I've had an officer actually demonstrate the test to a jury, and he was not able to complete the test. The one-leg stand, he had clues of impairment, even though he hadn't been drinking. It was just because he was out of shape. So there are ways that you can attack the field sobriety test there, in addition to looking at what the tests are actually trying to prove. Also, there's only 3 field sobriety tests that have been approved by NHTSA, which is the organization that approves those kinds of tests. There's 3 additional tests that you may have experienced during your stop with the officer, and those ones are easily thrown out because they aren't even approved tests for purposes of proving impairment. We can even bring in an expert who can testify about why your results shouldn't be held against you. Disputing the breathalyzer test is another way that you can challenge a DUI. You can do that in several ways. I'm going to talk about just a couple of them. First, there is a standard deviation, or a margin of error. So even on any test that's run perfectly with all the controls working, there's still a percentage that the instrument could be off, which means that if you're at a 0.09 and the legal limit is 0.08, it's probably unlikely that they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that your BAC was above a 0.08. There's other calibration issues with those instruments. I like to explain it like a piano. A breath instrument is a machine, but not like a car where you can get down the block even if your check engine light's on and it's making some noise. It's an instrument, so just being even a little out of tune can throw off the entire test. So it's important that we review the internal controls of the instrument as well as all of the calibrations and checks that have been done. Those instruments need to be checked frequently by people who are trained to check them, not just administer tests. We can look at the maintenance records of those instruments to make sure that they're being done timely and properly. There are so many ways to fight a breath test. If you're in a situation where you have a breath test and you're concerned about your results, give us a call. We're happy to help. When you get stopped for a DUI, there's several places that the case can be challenged or weak for the prosecutor. One of those is the stop itself. So we always look to see why you were stopped and if the evidence supports that. Then we look to the field sobriety tests. Did they have grounds to administer the field sobriety tests? And were the field sobriety tests enough for them to request your blood or breath? And lastly, we look to challenge the breath results or the blood results. Because if we can challenge that and show that it was inappropriately obtained, then we can exclude those results. And it's extremely difficult for a prosecutor to prove a DUI without having the blood or breath test results. As much as having a friend or family member testify that you were at the party but you weren't drinking, the best way, in my experience, to challenge a DUI is expert testimony. If we have an expert come in and explain why the breath test results could be off and talk about the studies that have been done that show that body temperature or other external factors can have an impact on those results, we'll have a better chance of reaching your goals and getting the outcome that you want. If you're facing DUI charges, it's scary. You need legal counsel that's been trained in the DUI area. It's such a unique and scientific area that somebody with that expertise is going to be able to help you navigate such a challenging time. You can always give us a call at Addie's Law. We're happy to help.